Minister of Varomi, this budget is presented at a time when St. Martin continues to demonstrate overall economic growth. Authorities respond to reported fuel oil odor near PJI-AE airport area. BBC News, tributes paid to country music icon Dolly Parton. MP Doran questions how government can report a surplus while vendors remain unpaid. From the island of St. Martin, this is SXM Daily News for August 26, 2026. Patrice Gums, Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure Varomi. This budget is presented at a time when St. Martin continues to demonstrate overall economic growth and even more significant growth in the built environment. The Ministry of Varomi. This growth translates to growing demand for housing, heightened expectations for modern infrastructure, environmental stewardship, and efficient public service delivery. Speaking at the House of Parliament 2025-2026 budget.
This budget is being presented at a time when St. Martin continues to demonstrate overall growth in the economy and even more significant growth in the built environment. For the Ministry of Varomi, this growth translates to growing demand for housing, heightened expectations for modern infrastructure, environmental stewardship, and efficient public service delivery. While economic growth is a positive indicator of progress, it requires government to plan strategically and act decisively to ensure that growth is sustainable, inclusive, and beneficial to all residents and visitors alike. At the same time, the ministry continues to operate within significant financial and human resource constraints, which limits our ability to keep up with the increasing demands. Madam Chair, Members of Parliament, it is within this context that we chose the theme around our proposed budget, delivering more with limited resources. This theme accurately reflects the reality of the Ministry of Varomi. Over the years, the community of St. Martin has repeatedly expressed concerns regarding road conditions, flooding, housing shortages, environmental management, waste challenges, permit backlogs, domain land, and of course, enforcement. The ministry recognizes these concerns. However, it is equally important to recognize that many of these responsibilities must be carried out with a workforce that remains below formation and within a budget that must cover a wide variety of essential public services. The central question before us is not whether more needs to be done. The question is, how can we maximize results with the resources available? The 2026 budget is designed specifically around this principle. Despite these realities, the ministry remains committed to delivering tangible results for the people of St. Martin. Our focus is on making responsible investments, improving service delivery, strengthening policy implementation, modernizing our operations, and continuing to build a more resilient, sustainable, and well-planned country through the mandate entrusted to the Ministry of Varomi. The 2026 budget is therefore not simply a financial document. It is a roadmap for execution. It reflects our commitment to addressing critical national priorities, including affordable housing, improved infrastructure, environmental management, and spatial planning reform, and enhanced public services, while ensuring that public funds are utilized effectively and responsibly. Today, I will present our policy priorities, budget allocations, key accomplishments achieved thus far in 2026, the challenges we continue to face, and the measures being implemented to ensure that the resources entrusted to the ministry generate maximum value for our community and contribute meaningfully to the continued development of St. Martin. I will first revisit the ministry's vision and mission, followed by our policy priorities. Thereafter, I will discuss the ministry's organizational reality, an overview of the proposed budget, including major expenditures and capital projects, followed by key risks and mitigation plans, ending with a few of our accomplishments to date. Very quickly, our vision is to realize an optimal living, working, and recreational environment for all residents and visitors of St. Martin. Our mission remains to ensure that integral design and management of public space through policy, legislation, and effective execution. These are not merely statements. Our vision and mission guide every major decision we make. Whether we are discussing affordable housing, road rehabilitation, flood mitigation, environmental protection, digitization of services, each initiative ultimately contributes toward improving the quality of life for our people. That remains the ministry's primary goal. Madam Chair, members of Parliament, for 2026, the ministry has identified several strategic policy areas. First, starting on the topic of housing, housing remains one of the nation's most pressing priorities. We will continue implementation of the National Housing Strategy, strengthen cooperation with the St. Martin Housing Development Foundation, advance the Mortgage Guarantee Fund, and support implementation of the new building code. Earlier this year, the government purchased Belvedere Remainder, and over the first part of the year, worked with an intern on a plan for the resilient development of the property. This has been submitted, and the government is now in the phase of review and costing for future discussions on financing its development. Complementing this is the Mortgage Guarantee Fund, the reestablishment of which is progressing well as the work being done to realize the implementation of the new building code. On infrastructure, our priorities focus on improved road management, drainage systems, flood mitigation, sewage improvements, and better infrastructure planning. Regarding spatial planning, we continue to work on the very important land issuance policy, which regulates how public land can be issued going forward, the land pricing policy, the spatial economic strategy, and finally, the establishment of the National Zoning Framework for Country St. Martin. These initiatives are essential for orderly development and greater investment certainty. Environmental sustainability. The ministry will continue advancing the highly anticipated integrated waste management reforms, modernizing the environmental legislation, environmental enforcement capacity, and cooperation with environmental stakeholders. Lastly, on the quality of service in the ministry as a whole, the ministry will continue digitizing initiatives, documentation of processes, improving transparency to our services, reducing the backlog, and strengthening administrative enforcement mechanisms. These initiatives collectively represent the modernization agenda of VROMI.
Minister of SCV, Claret Connor. Here are the headline numbers, broken down into personal cost and material cost. $255 million. It's right on the $56 million mark, an increase of 2.6%, mainly driven by filling vacancies and maintaining service capacity. Material cost amounts to $52,966,000, representing an increase of approximately 24%. When the external funding, however, is excluded, the ministry's material cost budget amounts to approximately $41 million.
Here are the headline numbers broken down into personnel cost and material costs. Personnel cost amounts to $55 million, right under $56 million, and an increase of 2.6%, mainly driven by filling the vacancies and the need to maintain service capacity. Material cost amounts to $52,966,000, representing an increase of approximately 24%. When the external funding, however, is excluded, the ministry's material cost budget amounts to approximately $41 million, which would then reflect a 4.2% decrease in material costs compared to 2025. The major components of the personnel costs are gross salaries, pensions, social security, and health insurance. The health coverage, specifically OZR, represents the funding of the medical coverage of civil servants, which should be transferred to SZV. At 38.8 million guilders, this is the largest single component of our personnel cost. We also have $413,000 set aside for third-party hiring to support critical needs where in-house capacity is constrained. For the 2026 budget, Madam Chair, the ministry budgeted for 3 vacancies totaling approximately 297,000 guilders. While these positions will provide some additional support, they are definitely not sufficient to address all of the capacity gaps across this ministry. Material costs for 2026 amounts to right under 53 million guilders. The largest component is medical assistance, totaling 22 million, followed by social assistance at 8.2 million, and this social assistance is directly supporting the households. Accounting, advisory services, and service level agreements, SLAs, amounts to 11.4 million, and a large link, and this is linked to the ongoing reforms. Over these expenditures support both the ministry's day-to-day operations, and the implementation of its policy priorities and reform agenda. What does this mean in practice? The majority of our material costs is already committed to essential assistance and legal obligations. This slide represents the same information as the previous slide, but in percentages. And the members of Parliament can follow the percentages there on this slide. As we move to the next slide, this brings us to our policy priorities, starting with public health. Our health policy framework rests on 4 pillars. First, access and prevention, such as improving access to care and running disease prevention and emergency medical services, EMS, awareness campaigns. Second, the key initiatives such as mental health legislation, non-communicable disease and communicable disease awareness, immunization, and other prevention programs. Third, quality and safety such as inspections, training, ambulance staff certification, and event policy development. Fourth, capital investment such as vehicles and equipment for the ambulance services, CPS field capacity, and public health inspectorate. Together, this is prevention, regulation, and service improvement working as one.
Minister of Education, Melissa Gums. This budget and the policy priorities supporting it reflect the Ministry of Education.
School furniture, materials and supplies, so replacement of school furniture, teacher learning aids, school materials and supplies, and office materials. And that accompanying methodology provides a 5% annual amount for inventory and replacement costs. Utilities and day-to-day operations, structural funding also covers operating costs such as electricity, gas, water, internet, telephone, cleaning of school buildings and classrooms, maintenance of premises and grounds, and administrative costs. School activities and transportation, a standard 48 guilder per student allocation for school activities and associated transportation such as school trips. Professional development, a fixed annual amount of 180 guilders per employee for professional development or NASCOLing. School board administration, funding per school board for 3 functions related to governance, management, and admin, a board management manager, personnel officer, and financial officer, and other expenditures necessary to provide education. Other operations related to the ministry are also taken up in the balances that I shared earlier. And school transportation, as I mentioned, which is managed in collaboration with the Ministry of TIAT, accounts for 4.5% of the budget. And additional projects as well that are budgeted for the year 2026. How we have allocated funding. This is a question we often get, so I decided to put it into my presentation to share with the members of Parliament and the public as well. Public education, as you can see, approximately 22 million guilders. The Foundation for Catholic Education for 2026, 15.2 million guilders, about 90% of our subsidy budget. SFOBA, which is MPC and Sundial, 18 million guilders. FAVA, which is St. Martin Academy and Academy VBC, 11.2 million guilders. The Foundation for Protestant Christian Education, the Hillside Christian Schools, 5.7 million guilders. The MAC Methodist Agogic Center, 9.6 million guilders. The Seventh-day Adventist School, 3 million guilders. The University of St. Martin, 2 million guilders. The National Institute for Professional Advancement, NEPA, 3.7 million guilders. And the Charlotte Brookson Academy, 2.2 million guilders for 2026. I just wanted to provide the individual funding amounts for these entities within the education sector, including public education, to frame how the bulk of the ministry's budget is already allocated, leaving, as many have said before me, little wiggle room. For Culture Department growth, as I mentioned, it experiences the largest growth in the ministry's budget, but this increase to 6.25 million guilders is driven largely by the Action Agenda Slavery Past initiative, while maintaining support for heritage preservation, cultural development, UNESCO activities, and creative industries. If we delve a little further into the culture program, key investments include the Action Agenda, as I mentioned, heritage preservation, youth dance promotion, national cultural activities, and UNESCO-related programs. These investments contribute directly to nation building and strengthening our cultural identity. Yesterday, Madam Chair Lady, the ministry signed a memorandum of understanding with the St. Martin Development Fund for the management of the funds, as well as the planning and execution of all 9 projects listed under the Action Agenda, titled under the program name Future Roots. They are National Curriculum Development for the History of St. Martin, Monument Remapping, Beautification, and Digital Infrastructure, Upgrading the Phillipsburg Cultural Center, a Heritage Scholarship Program, Genealogical Research for Descendants of Slavery, Upgrading John Lamini Center, Upgrading CIMARC and museum staff, and developing books and audiovisual material history of St. Martin. The first 2 tranches, totaling $1.9 million, have already been transferred to SMDF, and project mapping is expected to begin soon. Future tranches will also go through this internal process. These funds represent the most significant investment in the development and preservation of our culture and heritage sector ever. As a fund management body, the St. Martin Development Fund has acted in this capacity for the government of St. Martin on previous projects related to other ministries, hence a decision by the ministry and the Department of Culture to collaborate with them on these significant cultural initiatives. Looking at youth development priorities, the youth department budget increases to 3.31 million guilders. The focus remains on empowering young people through youth engagement policies, rights-based programs, community initiatives, and opportunities to promote resilience, leadership, and positive social development. The 2026 budget also includes funding for Rights of the Child initiatives, early childhood development, youth participation programs, positive action activities, and youth development interventions. These programs aim to build responsible, engaged, and resilient young citizens. Supporting these initiatives by the Department of Youth is the Positive Parenting Support Program, which was launched in 2024 and is the result of a collaboration between UNICEF Netherlands and the government of St. Martin. I believe it is important to mention this program, Madam Chair Lady, because ultimately, the work of the Department of Youth cannot be considered successful without open-minded support from parents, guardians, and indeed other adult figures in our society. Youth participation and advocacy is only authentic and impactful when we create an environment that fosters their active participation and decision-making. We must actively listen to, consider, and incorporate their input into policy development across ministries, but starting with this one. That is how we make them more than contributors. We make them co-creators, and that is true meaningful youth participation and true meaningful nation building.
Member of Parliament Egbert J. Doran is questioning how the government can report a positive financial result while millions of guilders remain owed to vendors and civil servants continue waiting on payments and benefits due to them. During the 2026 budget debate, MP Doran focused on the government's reported first quarter positive result of approximately CG 39 million. For Doran, the issue is simple. If government is doing financially well, that should also be reflected in how he questioned why vendors who have already provided goods and services to the government are still waiting to be paid, while civil servants continue waiting on jubilees and other outstanding payments. The Minister of Finance explained that a budget surplus is not the same as cash available in government's bank account. She stated that government must continue paying salaries, school subsidies, study financing, vendors, operational expenses, interest, and loan repayments. Finance also confirmed that approximately CG 12.8 million in outstanding vendor payments is currently registered in government's central financial system. The minister explained that some of these invoices cannot be paid immediately because proper procedures were not followed. In some cases, there was no purchase order, approved advice, signed contract, or proof that the person who requested the service had the authority to financially commit government. Government is therefore moving toward a stricter no purchase order, no pay system. MP Doran, however, questioned whether it is fair for businesses to carry the consequences of government's own internal failures. He pointed out that when a Secretary General, civil servant, contract manager, policy advisor, or even a minister approaches a business and requests goods or services, the vendor is not normally in a position to determine whether that government official has followed every internal procedure. Doran said that if a government official improperly commits the government to an expense, the responsibility should not simply be shifted to the vendor after the work has already been completed. He therefore asked the minister what consequences would apply to government officials who request goods or services without having the proper authorization. The minister responded that unauthorized officials should, where possible, be held liable. For Doran, that answer reinforces the need for the government to strengthen its internal controls while protecting businesses that acted in good faith. If we have approximately CG 13 million owed to vendors, but we are talking about a surplus, somehow somewhere the maths don't add up, Doran stated during the debate. The MP said he understands that government must follow proper financial procedures, but those procedures must work on both sides. Government must ensure that its officials do not make unauthorized commitments, while vendors must be able to trust that when government requests a service, the proper process has been followed. Doran maintained that a positive financial result should mean more than a good figure on paper. For him, the real test is whether the government is paying legitimate bills, honoring its obligations, and ensuring that businesses and civil servants are not left waiting while government continues to report that its finances are performing positively.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
TELEM has been identified by government as a national fiscal risk, yet 6 weeks after MP Darryl York submitted questions on its governance, restructuring, employee turnover, outsourcing, investments, financial position, and strategy, Parliament has received no answers. During the clarification of Round 1 of the 2026 budget debate, the Minister of Finance confirmed that TELEM management had not provided the requested information despite multiple reminders from his own ministry. The turnaround plan expected since last year remains unfinished, and the appointment of a permanent CEO remains tied to that unfinished process. That exchange set the tone for York's questioning of the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, in which he pressed for a consolidated account of what this government has actually delivered. Government could not produce one. There is no single picture showing what was promised, what was completed, what remains outstanding, and what measurable results the public has received. On the household assistance announced for December, York was blunt. December came, December went, no one got the subsidy, he said. What are the tangible things that the people of St. Martin could sit back and say, "We have felt it, we are seeing it, we have hope in it"? York asked. We are not standing here expecting the Prime Minister to tell us a quick scan and a recruitment plan are his main successes, he said. Those are the type of things we would have expected after year 1. Going into year 3, we are expecting more. After repeated commitments on relief, York said, "The public is entitled to know what assistance is coming, who will qualify, and when it will reach them." On the tax administration, York acknowledged that new computer systems may improve operations, but noted that technology does not replace the people needed to assess, inspect, collect, and execute. The department's human capacity challenges remain serious and unresolved, and no system will close that gap on its own. On the Treasury, the question was basic. How many requests remain unanswered, and how many approved payments remain unpaid? The response was that government does not keep statistics on unanswered Treasury correspondence. York noted that if workload exceeds a department's capacity, that is precisely the kind of problem government should be able to identify and act on, and that it cannot act on what it does not measure. None of this requires new money or new law. York has called for 2 things: a firm deadline for TELEM to submit the information Parliament requested 6 weeks ago, enforced by the shareholder representative rather than requested again, and a consolidated delivery report laid before Parliament setting out, item by item, what was promised, what was completed, what is outstanding, and what the public has actually received. After nearly 2 years, the benchmark cannot continue to be what government intends to do. It has to be what was done, what changed, and what the people actually felt. Going into year 3, we are expecting more. Minister of Justice Natalie tackling on what this ministry is bound to do. Before we discuss what the ministry chooses to do, I want to be exact about what it is that we are obliged to do, because these 3 levels are often collapsed into one. But they're not the same thing. We have our international obligations, these norms in St. Martin, and they're not a matter of preference. The standards on detention, on and on the treatment of people in custody that flow from the European Convention of Human Rights.
Then, what the ministry is bound to do. Before we discuss what the ministry chooses to do, I want to be exact about what it is that we are obliged to do, because these 3 levels are often collapsed into one, but they're not the same thing. We have our international obligations. These bind St. Martin, and they're not a matter of preference. The standards on detention and on the treatment of people in custody that flow from the European Convention of Human Rights, the United Nations Conventions on Transnational Organized Crime, on corruption and on narcotic drugs, the rights of the child, and the international standards on money laundering and terrorist financing, on which we are assessed by our own regional peers. When we fall short of these, we are told so publicly in judgments against this country and in how the outside world prices doing business with us. Then we have our kingdom-level obligations. These follow from the various kingdom acts, those establishing the Joint Court of Justice, the Public Prosecutor's Office and the Attorney General, the Council for Law Enforcement, together with the Kingdom Act on the Coast Guard. They set St. Martin's share of institutions that the countries of the kingdom run together. I'm not presenting these as something that is done to us. St. Martin sits at the table where these agreements are set and where these budgets are set, and these institutions serve in our justice chain. But I am presenting them as fixed. Neither this ministry nor Parliament can redirect this money from the budget. Then we have our local obligations. These are the ones that our people feel. Our own national legislation requires this country to maintain a police force, a place of detention, control our borders, collection at our ports, protection for children at risk, a financial intelligence function, and an internal investigation capacity. It also requires us to give effect to the judgments of our own courts. When a sentence handed down here cannot be carried out, that is not an administrative matter. It is a promise to a victim that the country did not keep. I put that first among our local obligations, and I do not intend to argue with anyone who raises it. Then our kingdom contributions, just to see the slight changes that have happened here. I'll go through these quickly. The Joint Court of Justice for this year is up by 3.1%, but I caution Parliament to look out for Budget 2027 where it is an increase of 33%, which is having a very significant impact on our 2027 abilities as a Ministry of Justice. Then we also see a decrease in the public prosecutor of 14.4%, going from 1.15 million to 986,000 guilders. But we do, of course, then see an increase in the parquet PG, which is up by 20.6%. As I mentioned, we see a slight increase then. If you look at the actual cost, not that recalculation, the Coast Guard budget is actually up by 12.1%, but if you look at it within the budget book, because of that different presentation, it looks like it's an increase of over 100%, but the actual number is 12.1. Then we have the Council for Law Enforcement. This contribution has remained flat over the years at 925,000 guilders. Of course, this is the entity that inspects this ministry and reports on it, and we fund the scrutiny that we receive. Together, in 2025, our kingdom contributions were 13.09 million. This year, they've gone up to 13.82 million, which is up by 5.6%. And again, this is roughly 12% of the ministry's budget. Then we go on to our 6 strategic policy goals for 2026. I now turn to the resources, from resources to policy, and what this budget is meant to deliver and whether it can be delivered. The budget memorandum assigns every non-personnel program to one of the 6 strategic policy goals. I won't read every line, as I said, because the members of Parliament have the budget book, but the shape matters because it shows where this ministry has room to act and where it does not. Goal number 1 is international cooperation with strategic partners, and it's one of our largest at 21.2 million guilders. But again, I want to say read that carefully because 13.8 million of that, 21.2, is again our kingdom obligations. And the balance covers our other cooperation and compliance obligations. So this section right here of that 21.2 is not actually something that is discretionary to the ministry, but really things that we're obligated to do. Goal number 2 is our shared responsibility for safety and justice. This is youth protection, foster care oversight, victim support, budgeted at 3.2 million guilders. Goal number 3, building a fairer and more effective justice system. This is an internal reform agenda, which is our staff placements, looking at digital case management systems, transparency, This is budgeted at 6.8 million guilders operational, plus another 2.8 million guilders in CapEx. Goal number 4 is strengthening of law enforcement and crime prevention, police training, financial crime, cyber capacity, law enforcement. Here, our policy part is at 1.5 million guilders, and it's one of the smallest allocations in the budget, but I think that this figure understates the effort that is actually taking place. So in this context, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that most of our police training is actually not funded through our local budget, but it actually is funded through our cooperation within the Collège van Korpschefs, where we receive money for the different police forces within the kingdom every year from the Ministry of Justice and Security in the Netherlands, and that actually finances most of the training that takes place within KPSM. So while this looks like a small number, a lot is happening outside of our national budget.
Shortly after 4 a.m. on Wednesday, August 26, 2026, Central Police Dispatch received information concerning a strong odor of oil fuel reportedly coming from the vicinity of the Princess Juliana International Airport, PJIAE, and the lagoon area near the Win Air office along Airport Road. Upon receiving the report, the necessary emergency and governmental entities, including the Fire Department, Coast Guard, and other relevant authorities, were immediately informed and directed to the area to assess the situation. The responsible authorities are currently on location and are conducting the necessary investigations to determine the source of the odor and whether a fuel or oil spill has occurred. The company operating at PJIAE that manages the airport's fuel operations is also working together with PJIAE and the relevant authorities to investigate the situation and determine the appropriate measures to mitigate any potential impact. At this time, the cause and extent of the reported situation have not yet been established. As a precautionary measure, residents and persons in the surrounding area who are experiencing irritation or discomfort from the odor are advised to keep their windows and doors closed and limit exposure to the odor until further information is available. KPSM, together with the other responding agencies, PJIAE, and the company responsible for managing the airport's fuel operations, will continue to monitor the situation and provide further information to the public as it becomes available.
Now the local weather forecast tonight: warm and slightly hazy with isolated showers, surface winds, tonight through Thursday morning, east-northeast to east-southeast with a light to moderate breeze at 5 to 14 mph. Sea conditions: sheltered areas open. Water state: smooth to slight waves, swells up to 2% outlook through Friday morning. Hot, humid, and slightly hazy with isolated. And now 3 days weather forecast.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
On Tuesday, August 25th, 2026, officers of the police force of Sint Maarten, KPSM, were conducting a routine control in the Philipsburg area, specifically on Front Street, when they encountered a male individual carrying a backpack. As officers attempted to approach and conduct a control of the individual, he fled the scene on foot, leaving the backpack behind. Upon inspecting the abandoned backpack, officers discovered several license plates and various tools. The items were confiscated and are being examined as part of an ongoing investigation to determine their origin. KPSM is appealing to members of the public who have recently lost or had license plates stolen to report the matter at the nearest police station. Individuals are encouraged to provide the necessary information so officers can determine whether their missing license plates are among those recovered. KPSM also reminds vendors and businesses that they should exercise caution when purchasing license plates or other vehicle-related items from unknown or random individuals. Purchasing stolen property can have legal consequences. Anyone who may have information regarding the identity of the suspect, witnessed the incident, or has information that could assist the investigation is urged to contact the KPSM Detective Department or visit the police station in Philipsburg. Contact info +7221 54222. Minister of Finance, Honourable Marinka Gums, expressed her appreciation for the service and leadership of outgoing President of the Central Bank of Curaçao and Sint Maarten, CBCS, Mr. Richard Doornbosch, recognizing his important contribution to the monetary union and his commitment to strengthening the relationship between the Central Bank and Sint Maarten. In a farewell address marking Mr. Doornbosch's departure, Minister Gums highlighted his tenure as one characterized by professionalism, stability, sound judgment, and a commitment to public service. From the perspective of Sint Maarten, I want to say publicly tonight, you made an effort to ensure that we had that seat, that we had that voice, and that our voice was heard. That deserves our appreciation, Minister Gums stated. The minister reflected on the relationship that developed between the Ministry of Finance and the CBCS during Mr. Doornbosch's tenure. What initially began with both parties carefully assessing one another evolved into a relationship based on trust, open communication, and mutual respect.
Sadness lies with us, not with Dolly, Parton's nephew Brian Seaver said in a video announcement. In a 7-decade career, Parton won 10 Grammy Awards, sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and wrote in excess of 3,000 songs. Parton took her writing seriously and considered herself a songwriter over everything else. "It's my way of expressing myself," she said. "It's my therapy." She was also a savvy businesswoman who wasn't afraid to make tough decisions. Armed with a quick wit and southern charm, she took control of her show business career that spanned more than 60 years.
Announcing the passing of my Aunt Dolly Rebecca Parton Dean. Sister, sis, Aunt Granny to one generation and Gigi to the next.
Goodbye. Please don't.
Flowers, tributes, flags across America are being lowered in honor of Dolly Parton. In a statement, President Trump said, "There has never been anyone like her."
My folks were just simple, poor mountain people. We lived on a farm. I'm from a family of 12 children. And I think being the fourth one down, I didn't get paid a lot of attention. I was the kind of kid that needed a lot of attention.
Dolly Parton. It was, she said, a dirt-poor childhood, a one-room cabin on the banks of the Little Pigeon River. What changed her life was an uncle who encouraged her to sing.
I was just about 10 then, and I sang my song, and they kept bringing me back, wanting me to sing it, sing it, sing it. I remember looking up at my uncle and saying, "I'm going to be a star, ain't I?"
Pretty Miss Dolly Parton, how about it?
In 1967, she got her big break on TV. She was already at 21 a successful Nashville songwriter. And she soon developed a look.
Then up here in these cabinets are my wigs. So here's another dolly. Show business is a money-making joke, and I just always like telling jokes.
But do you ever feel that you're a joke, that people make fun of you?
Oh, I know they make fun of me. But actually, all these years, the people, has thought the joke was on me, but it's actually been on the public. I know exactly what I'm doing. Jolie, 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 Jolie.
It was carefully crafted, glossy fakery on the outside. What was real were the lives and stories she sang about. Jolene and I Will Always Love You, two songs written on the same day and based on events in her own life. But some things stayed private, in particular, her husband Carl.
Here you come again.
In the 70s and 80s, she reached far beyond the traditional country audience.
Islands in the street, that is what we are.
With a run of hits.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life.
There were the movies.
Mr. Hart, I've told you before, I'm a married woman.
And I'm a married man. That's what makes it so perfect.
Oh, Mr. Hart.
A TV production company, and Dollywood, her own theme park.
She pulled and she tugged. I think I can, she said. Won't you help me? All of you
Her
help me.
foundation sent out more than 300 million books to children, a project inspired by her father, who had not had a chance to learn to read.
She was just such an amazingly humble and nice person. And I mean, personally, I mean, it hurts. Dolly was always somebody for me I thought I'd get to sing with someday. But when you think of Dolly Parton, it's more than music. It's all the great things she's done, all the people she's helped.
She led with such heart. One of our colleagues said today, the thing about Dolly is that she is appreciated everywhere around the world. She's known by one name, and everybody throughout the world knows and loves her. She appeals to, in our country, Democrats and Republicans, gay, straight, men, women. She's universally loved.
She was a country star with an audience that seemed to cross all boundaries of class, sex, religion and politics. And as she reached her 70s, her popularity only seemed to grow. But in the months after the death of her husband Carl, there were health issues, treated in typical Dolly style.
Well, hey there, it's Dolly. And I'm here to give you an update on a few things going on in my life. First, it's concerning my health.
She was always going to be upbeat to the end, always the first to laugh at herself. But behind it all was a clever, driven songwriter and performer. And those songs rooted in the joys and heartache of the life of Dolly Parton.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.